adopted a common statement of purpose about our efforts to collaborate, and tonight we have an update for you regarding our progress on that. Representatives from all three communities here to talk about that, and our very own Brian Kidney will kick this off. Mr. Kidney.
Okay. Hello.
That
Yikes.
shocked me. Do you see that flame shoot out there?
I did. So we ought to check that.
Yeah. If only we knew any electricians.
Right.
So thank you. And thank you, Zach, for giving my whole entire second slide. First of all, just as City Manager said, this is coming back from a year ago when we came to the council and asked for a statement of purpose, of just coming together. We have joint boundaries with the Eastern County. We have many professional relationships with there. A lot of the same issues and concerns. And of course, we're always looking at how can we become more efficient. And so this group was brought together. Each of the city managers recommended or volunteered somebody to come and be part of this group. I just want to introduce real quick Chris Klubine. He's a management analyst for Lease Summit. Christine Cates is here, and she's assistant city manager for Blue Springs. And of course, we have an alumni here, Laura Palmer's with Mark. And she's the director of local government services. And I do want to just make a call out real quick to Melissa Milano. You may not know her, but she is an amazing professional in our HR department. And she, for a lot of these meetings, she actually headed up representing the HR since we didn't have an HR manager at that time. So again, part of the statement of common purpose, I think I actually just gave that part of it. So I'm going to turn this over to Lauren. Yeah.
Thanks for that introduction, Brian. Mark was very pleased to be asked to assist with this initiative because we have a real history of convening sub-regional partnerships to try to work on shared services. Mark has a strategic emphasis on shared services and a history of responding to needs from cities and counties within our member cities, within our region. Our mission is very simple. We work to help our member cities and counties think about ways that they can deliver services more efficiently and effectively by working together instead of everyone trying to deliver services on their own. And when we approach this work, we always do it with a mindset of being sensitive to each community's unique character and the need for retaining local control. This is very hard work, so I want to applaud you and the other city councils for getting into this initiative. It's very hard to break free from routines and to experiment with new methods of service delivery, and it takes tremendous trust and leadership to come together and look at different ways to share the risk of delivering municipal services. But our region has had tremendous success with this kind of work. The slide that you see on your screen lists just a few examples that Mark has helped develop over the years and that all three of the member cities have been involved in. Each of these examples has a story of the region responding to an identified need that no single community could have adequately addressed on its own. Many of these services were considered revolutionary at the time that they were developed, but now they are commonly accepted standards of the way that we do business in the region. Communities are motivated to explore shared service by a variety of factors. Alleviating fiscal stress by generating savings through economies of scale is commonly cited, but something that we've learned in our work and in our research is that often direct savings are offset by the administrative overhead of designing and delivering services through a shared model. So the approach that we have employed in our work with this team is to start by asking the question, how can we improve service delivery? And then designing the shared services in a way to neutralize the cost impact while improving performance, instead of just starting from that first question of how do we save money. We've really had the focus on enhancing service delivery.
We're well rehearsed. You see that? Not sure why this is not going back here. So we looked at multiple different services, and this actually is not the right slide. I'm having a little trouble going backwards though, but there were multiple items that we saw as potential shared services. In fact, there was 9 that we really hit pretty hard. two of which we've deferred. And I'll just mention real quickly, the two that we deferred were employee health clinics and also mental health co-responders. The employee health clinics, I think, the city of Independence has struggled with our healthcare costs and really wanted to see what we could do to help each other to how we can lower those costs. But we quickly came to a realization that, Blue Springs uses Marcid or a different pool type thing, and then Lee Summit has a private insurer. So from the very initial thing, you have three different employers having three different types of insurance where we're self-funded. So it didn't really lend itself very well. And then just the whole complication of just the different coverages and everything, how it interacts with some kind of a clinic. So we've backed off that a little bit. We want to readdress it, not so much as a clinic so much, but just like we're doing here in Independence, we're looking at what can we do outside of a clinic for health and wellness of employees. So it may not be in a clinic setting so much, but it is looking at health and wellness. And so we might be looking at this again with our partners in the other two cities if there's something that we're doing that seems to make sense that we can have as part of a shared service. Excuse me, my voice is a little coming down with something, I guess, so I'll try not to cough on this. And of course, the other part is mental health co-responders. So many of our police calls has some sort of a mental health issue along with it. So we found, and research shows, if you have a co-responder who's a professional in the mental health area, they're able to work with whatever experience they're responding to, while the police officer is able to go and perform other services. So it really helps our police department, takes the drain away from the police department on focusing on a lot of mental health issues. So the three organizations got together, a lot of really good planning meetings. It really kind of came down to funding issues, where we have two different mental health agencies covering the three different communities. There was a grant put forward that was not funded. However, the three agencies are, the three cities are still getting together and looking at doing it again, applying next year. I will say Blue Springs and City of Independence did receive funding from the mental health agency directly, and they are actually, at least in Independence, are funding a mental health professional for co-responders, and that person just works for the mental health agency. So again, a lot of great discussion, a lot of potential there. And then the other items we'll each talk a little bit about. Each one of them are leadership exchanges, supervisory training, governance training, exit interviews, whistleblower reporting, cybersecurities, IT services, and compensation studies. So we've looked at all of these issues this year. When it comes to exit interviews, this is something that Independence and Blue Springs have really picked up. Lee Summit was already doing an exit interview process themselves, but City of Independence and Blue Springs didn't have a very robust one, where we'd have employees as they left are like, fill this form out, and then the form would come. Sometimes it went back to the department head, sometimes it went to a supervisor, but there really wasn't a lot of analysis done on why is this employee leaving and what can we do to make it, to attract employees and retain them. And so we contracted, at least Blue Springs and Independence has contracted with Mark, and they're conducting the interviews outside of the workplace environment. So it's after the employees left. They're doing an exit interview online, and then part of the services, they're going to do an analysis to see, kind of do some data mining there and see if there's any items that continues to come up for possible training opportunities for our supervisors or other things we might want to be looking at. So again, it just started, and we're looking forward to that to get going. So I think I'll turn this over to Chris.
Thank you. So professional development was an area that we had identified early on where we could partner for some shared services. A professional development shared service that we have successfully implemented is supervisory training. The trainings are being delivered through Mark's Government Training Institute, with satellite courses being facilitated on a rotational basis at each of the cities. The first training was facilitated in October with the training topic on performance management, and last week we held our second training with the topic on having a positive approach to corrective action. In October, we also conducted a leadership exchange. We were able to facilitate 22 exchanges with employees from all levels of the organizations and several different departments participating. The exchange gave employees the opportunity to shadow a peer in a neighboring city. In addition to learning how peers in other organizations perform similar jobs, it also provided the opportunity to build relationships and exchange ideas. We're also in the process of working with the city clerks in each of the cities to develop content for a governance training for board and commission members, staff liaisons to those boards and commissions, and elected officials. The training will be delivered through the Government Training Institute. It's important to mention that the training does have the potential to be modified so that it can be scaled to other cities and government organizations in the region. Another service that we're currently working on is whistleblower reporting. Mark will be issuing a request for proposals to conduct a cooperative purchase for a regional ethics, safety, and fraud hotline and case management vendor. From the preliminary research on the topic, it is anticipated that there will be cost savings for each of the cities due to the joint purchasing and reducing of overhead costs. This is another example that although we're working on it as a shared service for the three of our cities, this will have the potential to be scaled to other regional cities and clients as well.
As you can see, we've been busy over the last year. Going forward, we will be monitoring the progress of the projects that are underway, and we've started to identify future projects, a few of which are up on your screen. This list has been compiled from discussions at our monthly meetings, and we are certain we will continue to identify other areas that benefit from the shared services model. For example, last week in Blue Springs, we had a council member add a suggestion for us to the list, and that was to monitor the outcome and impacts of economic development projects to see how successful they are across the three communities. So we'll put that on our agenda for discussion. Throughout the first year, we've learned many lessons. The items that have contributed to our success this year include leadership and support from elected officials and the city managers that launched this initiative and gave us direction. The project was guided by the city managers, but they delegated the project to staff with the capacity and authority to make a difference and make suggestions. We started with early wins this year, mostly in the human resources area. Our timeline and monthly meetings have helped us generate trust and understanding among our core team, which is allowing us to start exploring more challenging topics. Some of the challenges we've identified include that we are all very busy with day-to-day tasks, so it's difficult to set time aside to be strategic and experiment with new business models. All three cities have their commonalities, but we succeed and struggle in different areas. It's hard to figure out new models in which risk is fairly proportioned. Focusing on easy wins could also be a challenge if we stay focused on the easier topics and shy away from the more difficult ones. And not all of our initiatives or projects will result in dollar savings, but in efficiency and productivity. Improved service delivery is more difficult to measure than budget savings.
Yeah.
Questions?
Questions?
Thank you. It was nice to hear this for a second time. I heard it at the Mark board meeting last week, and I'm very grateful to Mark for helping our cities with this initiative, and I think it's a great model. Our three cities are obviously very closely connected, both geographically and with relationships. So, I mean, it's exciting for us to kind of be the pilot for our region, or potentially our nation, and finding ways to be more efficient with our local government. So I think I asked all my questions at the Mark meeting, so I'll allow the council members to make comments or questions. Yes.
Yeah, I had a question. City manager. Get this thing on here. Here lately, I've been getting a lot of emails and phone calls. I don't know if it's that time of year or what, but frontline trained employees being trained. I'm getting a lot of complaints that they're not solving the problem. They're actually hindering it. They're not directing people when to come into the front desk or whatever. They're not getting any direction. It's just like, this is what you can't do, rather than this is what you can do. So I didn't know if this was going to have anything to do with frontline employees training or anything like that, or is just supervisors?
Yeah, so thank you. As you all know, part of our strategic plan, one of those core 4 goals is customer focus, so very important to us. We actually, in Independence, piloted with a very small core group of employees through the Mid-America Regional Council, a customer service training that was successful. We do want to expand it out, so point well taken. That's something that we want to build upon, and as we move into the budget year here and as we continue to evolve what we're doing with shared services, that's absolutely something we'll put at the front of the line.
I know a lot of them, in the positions, that are pretty rough out there, codes and stuff like that, I'm just wondering if they have enough training to really, especially the newer ones.
Yeah, obviously with any profession, but especially public service, that ongoing training and core competencies are important, and customer focus is right there at the forefront of it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes.
So, thank you all for being part of this. It sounds like it's already started to be successful, and it's just the beginning. So I look forward to, in the next few years, for there to be real working together on some common issues and some cost savings, maybe some shared services, real services that we can actually cut down our costs, as well as Blue Springs and Lee Summit as well. I was going to ask about the dispatch and the 911. I know we talked before about the possibility of our new facility might even potentially be expanded to be a regional. And so hopefully that will be one of the things we look at down the road, maybe evaluation of that to save some money with shared services. And it would actually cover the territory, cover the out-county area that's outside city limits much better too. So maybe even the county would be a part of that as well. So.
Yeah, so when we started with shared services, we cast a really wide net of
Right.
what are all the different things we could focus on. We really wanted to cherry pick, if you will, and prove concept here. So we tried to identify the ones that we thought would certainly have meaningful impact, but that would be successful, so that we could come back into these governing bodies and tell you, hey, it's working. And I think that's where we're at now. And so now we can start to really widen into some of these other areas. And I've talked to the other city managers. Dispatching is a need for all 3. We are well equipped with our new dispatch center that was funded through the public safety sales tax. So I think that's something we'll continue to have conversation about.
Very good, thanks.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Kidney, I've asked a couple of times about sunshine seminars of some kind for boards and commissions. Would this be your group that's going to be perhaps doing that, or is it another group?
Yes, we've actually started the planning on that, and that's part of the shared services group. So I don't know if, Lauren, there's anything to add to that, but it is being set up.
Okay.
We have a subcommittee that's working on that, and right now they're working on a schedule to try to have something to launch, at least in a pilot phase, around May, June of next year, sort of targeting after the next election cycle.
Okay.
So I have a question, Mr. City Manager, regarding that. I believe what the councilwoman's referring to is training for council members and board and commission members regarding the Sunshine Law. It's something we've discussed, and what their obligations are under the Sunshine Law. I'm curious as to why this group would take that on. There's already training available through Missouri Municipal League and other organizations. Regionally, I think, Joe Lauber's law firm out in Lee Summit leads many of those, for which I've taken those classes through the MML. I think Lauren, Mark probably offers, I don't know, Sunshine Law, but there's other trainings out there available, which we've made available to all of our elected officials, certainly. And I did ask if those could be made available to our volunteers who serve on boards and commissions, and the answer is yes. I mean, that those are available, so why would we recreate that?
Yeah,
I
and
mean, people haven't taken advantage of the resource that's available, so I don't know why we would try to recreate that and not just encourage folks or provide an opportunity. If there's a cost involved, then we can certainly discuss covering that cost for our volunteers, our citizen volunteers to participate in those.
Yeah, and I'll continue to visit with Mr. Kidney and figure out the best.
I might
way
address
forward.
that. I think the philosophy is, like we did with the, some of the supervisor training classes that we've held or we're planning to hold. It's not so much that there's not training there, it's just we're making it more accessible. In fact, when you're talking about Joe or Mr. Lauber, it very well could be
Yeah.
him giving the training. I'm not exactly sure, but the idea with that is just to get exactly to the point of what the 3 cities they're looking for, and have that training very specifically and also more accessible, that is more available to the people that would be going to these trainings. But yeah, definitely the volunteer, the whole realm of things, Robert Rules of Order, if that's something that people are interested in. So again, it's not to supplement training, but it's to take that training and make it accessible here where more people have access to it.
So the organization, the Missouri Municipal League, which we're not a member of, but that doesn't mean that we can't participate in some of the classes and things that they have available. They partner with a company. It's all online. I mean, I got nearly all of my certified government official training online, so it doesn't get any more accessible than that, in terms. So I mean, I guess my point is, maybe what we should begin with in regards to this topic is making those resources more known to people, that they can participate in those rather than wait for this program. I mean, I think it's nice. I mean, it's always nice to say, we'll have something here locally that people can attend. But my point is that those resources have not been taken advantage of. So why don't we begin by trying to encourage that? Any other questions? Yes.
So, you've opened the groundwork and thrown out, as the city manager says, the net, and now you're running up against the harder subjects to be addressed. And the overall boogeyman here is risk management, how it's done in 3 different territories, and who's going to take that over. It's all well and good to say, let's just have one place that does this. It is monumentally hard to get that done across jurisdictions with the risk management. But I applaud the effort and the umbrella of Mark that can cut through a lot of that tape in different ways. I think the process is monument. I applaud it, and I know it's going to be now the grunt work. The getting down to it is really, there's always 13 other things from the other thing that you're trying to do. Good luck and thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, if I
Yes.
may. Oh, thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to kind of think out loud here and walk through this, so bear with me. Let's go for it here. So public safety, 911, dispatch centers. We all have the dispatch centers. There always seems to be a lack of fully staffing there. It's a skilled position. It's a high-stress position, and I'm assuming that most of our systems are same, similar, compatible to some degree, and if it's not, it's not. Is there a way to partner with MCC to do, I was like, lack of a better word, coursework, thoughts of somebody who's in college and thinking about a public safety career, something of that magnitude, to where we can offer a survey course or of what that would look like, so the municipalities don't have to hire somebody and go through that training process, that probationary process, and they put that whatever dollar amount time into that person, and they figure out, one, they don't like it, or two, you know, this is just whatever reason, not what they're fitting for, and we've lost all that time and money in that training. Is there thoughts about working with them and our public safety people to come up with coursework, or even go as far as are we willing to put up a 3-month course or whatever that looks like to have simulated 911 dispatch centers so people can do
Yeah,
and take
well,
a look at that?
Yeah, if, actually, I would say, and I don't know the full history of Mark, and I'm sure Lauren could come up and give us this great history of Mark, but my experience with Mark, and I've been in the metro area for about 20 years, is very specifically, I believe that was some of the foundation of what brought Mark together was the 911 training. They are amazingly talented and able to do most of that training, if not all the training that you're talking about. So it's something I think we can continue to address, but I like that, you know, the more of the outreach to be able to do that. I don't know if we have those kind of programs, but again, that's something we can check with Mark on.
Well, from my understanding, it's a challenge everywhere to retain the
absolutely. It's a
employees
tough position
who
to
wants to
fill.
do that and keep them. I mean, that's our job to try to
Right.
keep them. But to get that basic foot in the door, is this something that I like to do, think about, want to do? And if it is, then can I go a little further? And I don't know if there's a universal certification, that stamp that they can have, then go to, say, us and get specific with what we do and how we do it, just so we can weed out the people who don't want to do it. Because that's a high pressure job, and we pay well, and we don't want to waste that time and energy on it.
It's amazing, the people who are able to do that and do that job well, the stress behind it. I like the idea of outreaching and getting into, you know, areas to give people that experience of what it would be like. So maybe they're like, oh yeah, I don't want any part of this. I think that's something we could certainly do. I know on the HR side, Melissa might be able to verify. I mean, getting good qualified applicants for those positions are hard, and they're hard to keep too.
Do you know of, I'd be curious, does anybody know that there's a simulation that we can put together? I mean, we got simulations for every darn thing. I'm assuming there's got to be an Atari 2600 out there.
A what?
Well, Atari 2800, 2600, was that? 2600 out there that can do this.
So Brian mentioned it, at Mark, through the 911 program, through the 911 telecommunication fees that everyone pays into, we do have an incredible training program
Do we?
for
Okay.
911 dispatchers. I don't know the extent to which they are working with local higher education institutions to try to identify and recruit talent before they're hired on as a dispatcher. I mean, our program's really designated for professional development for existing
Sure.
dispatchers.
Okay.
I'd love the opportunity to go back and talk to the staff at Mark who work on that program and learn more. I mean, there may be more going on there that I'm just not personally familiar with, but it's a good idea. I'll also mention a new program that's been developed just within the last year or so. That 911 team has developed a really incredible peer support program where they've trained dispatchers peer-to-peer to be on call to provide support when, I mean, you can imagine in that line of work, dispatchers really deal with a lot of challenging and stressful situations. So they put together that program to try to provide that level of support. Again, just to help with retention. It's a tough job, and to help people have the support systems that they need to have some longevity.
So just to hear you right, so they have a facility there that does, once your foot in the door, to have that professional development there, but just not, you don't think there's just a whole lot of recruitment into there, that aspect?
I just
of it?
don't know.
Sure,
I'll
okay.
get some more information and work it back to your staff, but we absolutely have an incredible training program for professional development for dispatchers in our region.
I'd be curious to know.
I'll look into it.
Thanks. And if I can dovetail that into Mr. City Manager, can you, and you don't have to give a full report to the council, but maybe a memorandum, can you let us know where we are at on our staffing for our 911 center and how that is working with our new facility there and how that's flowing?
Sure, I will tell you, gosh, about 3 or 4 years ago, we were in a bad spot. We had more vacancies than we had filled positions. We're at a point now, last time I checked, and this has been 4 or 5 months ago, but we were down to 4 vacancies in our telecommunicator 1s and 2 or 3 in our telecommunicator 2s, so of about 19 or so authorized positions. So And at that time, we were testing for your conversation here. I will provide a current update. I'll get a memo to the council this week to let you know where we are staffing-wise, but a tremendous amount of credit to the leadership in the police department and our friends at Communication Workers of America. Both have worked jointly and cooperatively to try to get talent in here and make sure that we are providing. And I will tell you this, the new dispatch center made a world of difference in terms of retention. We are in far better working conditions over there, still very stressful work, but the environment is much, much more conducive to handle that stress, and I think that has gone a long way to helping.
It's top notch for sure, so thank you.
Yes.
Along those lines, I had an opportunity to talk to the union over the weekend, and they're concerned, and the facility has been a help. But when we did address this 3 or 4 years ago, the city manager and us came up with an idea of having apprentice or part-time people so that they could be moved into the spots. And I think that's reoccurring now in our our ongoing talks to get the facility. And I mentioned that to them, and they seem to be very receptive. But getting people is, you think you have the place, but when you get there, you have to be under somebody else, and you have to, you just can't be put in the slot, sort of like that pushing 10, where you cannot just go up and start making airplanes in line. It's a really difficult environment, and that's why I say, that the risk management part of this thing is you don't want to shove anything in that isn't going to be tried and true, because the problems occur anyway, even with that method. But having people who could be part-time was one of our major goals, and I think it's reoccurring and raising its head again.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. Next is our presentation on the Noland Road CID. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, we have a status update report from Jerry Winship, Executive Director of the Noland Road Community Improvement District. Go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Winship.
Hi, Jerry.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you some of the things that we've been doing. I have with me tonight Karen Downey, who is our chairperson of our board of directors, 5-member board. Some of you know her. Also, I have Kelly Thompson, the senior architect and designer for Oxford and Hare, who does all of our design and planning. Some 55 years ago, a person by the name of Mayor L.F.P. Curry was mayor of Independence, and at that time, I worked for him for 10 years in his private business, but at that time, he was as mayor, he hired Ralph Oxter as his first city planner in Independence 55 years ago. So the company that they represent actually started in Independence, and so we're glad to be working with them yet. Noland Road is a 25-year project to facilitate the implementation and the vision of Noland Road Corridor with our community and business owners and businesses to help improve and advance the design expectations to make Noland Road a vital entrance to Independence. We've been very active the last couple years in different ways. Some of you have noticed the banners that we've had up and down Noland Road. We have about 75 of those. Just put up 20 for the seasoned greetings. Changed them last week. And we did those a couple years ago. You also have hopefully seen the street signs, lighted street signs that we have done at 15 intersections on Noland Road. Well, we've done 11. Just today, we finally got approval from MoDOT for I-70, 23rd Street, and 40 Highway. And that permit is on the city engineer's desk today, I understand. So hopefully I'm meeting with her in the morning and we'll get that signed to finish up those intersections, as well as the one at Fair and Noland, the intersection that you all just redid. And so that would complete 15 intersections that we have done. Anytime you get into a project, there's always one more thing. And we found this out. We spent several $100,000 in doing this project. But when we did this, Public Works said, we need a survey of the poles to see if they're sufficient to hold the signs. And so we asked, well, where do we get this? Do you have one? And the city did not have one. And so we went out and hired engineers to do this. And they told us which poles were okay. There are 7 poles that, it's an A-frame truss pole. There's one at Walnut, 4 of them at Partridge. There's one at 44th Street and at Lynn Street. We have the signs to put up. And I talked to Mark the other day and Zach, and told him that we'd be willing to work with the city to try to maybe even get new poles and share it with you. And we're trying to work out something on that so we could complete. We have those in the warehouse, and we don't need to let them sit there for years to come. So we're trying to work that out too. A year ago, from I-70 to 40 Highway, we had 7 empty buildings or lots open. Today we have 1. We had 5 guys, Jack in the Box, Panda Express, I was going to say Hooters, Scooters Coffee, Taco John's, and different places. There's only 1 building that in our district that is not rented or used right now, and that's the little white building behind Hy-Vee that used to be a party patch or something out there. And that's the only building that I know we have available in our area, in that area. But just from I-70 to 40 Highway, we've been fortunate, and we haven't done it all. Other companies have done, but they see things happening in Independence, and I think it's been very beneficial. If I get this going right, the first project I want to talk about tonight is the triangle. I call it the Noland Road Community Parkway. This is at Fair and Noland Road. This is what it looked like a couple months ago. That one shrub there is about 28 foot high. 2 homeless people lived in this area. And unfortunately, when we move them out, where do we move them? We have a real problem, as you know, in Independence. But we've cleaned that up, and there's what it looks today. And our Christmas tree is there. And thanks to Mark, we have lights on it tonight. And so this is lit up too. And it's just part of the parkway. There's a plan that we have. We had a bus pull off on that area. We met with a bus company, and they said, good idea. They sent us an email the next morning and said, we'd rather you not do the bus pull out, because we had a pull out there, because they claimed that when they pull out on those sections, then the bus could not get back in, particularly at a stoplight. And the one at Fair there, that's what happens. And they say the bus drivers get too far behind on their schedules. I'm not sure, we shouldn't be taking care of the drivers rather than the bus people, but we're not having a pull out there. This is going to have an area there on my left, little circle, is a pad that we're doing, and we're trying to work with the city arts project people, and possibly in the future put some type of an art presentation there. The bus pull out is right here at the lower part, and instead of having benches, because homeless people lay on the benches, these are separate chairs. And we will have a unit there that can be in and out of the weather, that type of thing. there'll be, that street goes from Noland Road, goes Southwest Boulevard. It's 2 ways, 3/4 the way down, and that little area at this far end goes into a 1-way do not enter. What the city has agreed to do, and we're working on our plans, we're gonna take that 1 lane out to make it really harder for people to go that way. And we're trying to get that taken care of. And I think that's gonna be a beautiful parkway for the city of Independence. Next one here, this is the Union Pacific project. This is from 35th Street, Sonic Drive-In, down to 31st Street, across from Galen Boyers. These 2 planters, the Union Pacific is 0.6 of a mile. In 2003, the city of Independence signed a contract with Union Pacific, paid $15,000 for that property, and we've taken care of it. Then the city had the Chamber of Commerce sublet that, and they put these in about 15 years ago. They used them for a few years, and then they changed. People went away, and so they became dilapidated. We've just got in now, and we put, this is prairie wildgrass type of thing. I used the wrong word, I'm sorry, Kelly. But this also has a lot of beautiful plants, flowers in there. They've been planted, and it has the green shrubbery in the back. And by May or June, you'll see pink and yellow and everything in there. They'll be very beautiful along those 2 corridors. This is where the billboard is, up by Sonic Drive-In. And there's what you can see there. And again, we had homeless people living in that area. That was a chore. There's concrete blocks in there and everything. We went in there. There's what it looks like today. We've cleaned that out. This is looking south, and just beyond the billboard, there's a little hillside. There's been a mowing problem for the city for years, and we're going to be taking over the mowing for the city. And we'll have some beautiful flowers on that little hill there and everything again. In this area, we haven't really developed the things yet. We could put a little parkway there or something like that. I should have said that Zach, the city, has done a cooperative agreement with us where we took over what the chamber did not do, and we're fulfilling that under that contract. This was my #1 project as executive director of CID. This was the ugliest sign in town. I don't know if any of you remember where that is. Took me 2 years to find out who owned it. This fella actually owns 22 properties in Independence. And once we made contact, sure, I'll work with you. And so we took that 2 weeks ago, took that side down and put this one up. We're trying to get the pole signs in most places reduced down to monument signs. I'm working on a project from Fair to Gudgel. There are 15 pole signs in those 2 blocks. I think I have a shot at 8 or 10 of those, take those down and put monument signs there. We're working with the owners to do that. Some are opposing it, some are working with us. Oh, right across from there too, a new restaurant opened last Saturday. The Mexican restaurant there, and they've been doing very well, although every restaurant does well in the beginning, but they've had very good attendance. And they're putting an ice cream place, catty corner across the street in the old Community America Bank building. And that'll be ready in the spring. They're in there working on it now. This is the part I'm talking about, Fair to Gudgel. This is where 15 signs are. What we'd like to do, this is a pole sign there first. We'd like to take those signs down and put them lower, really at eye level for the drivers. And I think we could get that done. That would be a $200,000 project we're working on. This was our first street lights. Those are the little lights that I showed you just a moment ago. You can see them. They light up at night. This is the intersection of I-70 and Noland Road. We hope to start in the late spring. We're only a year behind. But we'd like to start late spring. Want to do landscaping on all four quadrants. And we'll be mowing the grass, cutting it like that and everything, and working on that. We also would like to make the entrance to Independence more attractive. And we would like to, these are all sketches that we're working on, but we've been working with the city and the mayor and everybody, and we're trying to develop these, and there would be some problems there. We're behind on this, like I say, because Noland Road's been closed out so many times recently. The city wanted not to do it right now, and so next year we'll be doing that, and we'll have a little lane closures on one side or the other. As you come on the off-ramp, this will be seen as you come up where the old hotel used to be on that side. It'll be that entrance to Independence. When you come from Blue Springs, it'll be on the west side. And those would be the entrances to Independence. Any questions that we have, what we're doing, or are we going the right way? Is there something else we need to do? We appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you.
Thank you, Jerry. We appreciate the update, and I know how much work your board puts in all year round, to work on planning and executing these projects. I think it's important to remind everybody, this is the largest CID in the state of Missouri. This is a very big area, and sometimes I think because these improvements, I mean, I'm impressed to hear, 15 intersections. I mean, that's a big number of intersections that now have lighted signage. I mean, we notice the landscaping improvements and things that have been done along the railroad tracks and up on Fair Street. But, when you're talking about a big area, sometimes it's easy to overlook, the impact of these improvements. So it's really helpful to have this presentation, draw people's attention to them and get them noticed. I think eliminating as many, pole signs when appropriate would be a really nice visual improvement for Noland Road. Working with our Board of Adjustments to, strengthen those variances will be really important as well, not just for Noland Road, but for some of the other areas that we're developing as well. So thank you very much.
I will need a little help on the Board of Adjustment when we do this two-block area, because we're going to be over the sidewalk a little bit, or going to have to make some adjustments, but we appreciate the help of the different departments.
Very good. Questions? Yes.
I just want to say thanks, Jerry, for all your hard work in making Noland Road transformative and beautiful, and the best is yet to come, and I'm kind of excited to see how that bridge is going to look and some of the things you have in the future planned. It's a great front door presentation you're getting.
We want to make it good. Some of you probably cruised Noland Road years ago. And we
No,
don't
I did not. Thank you.
we want to make it nice.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Jerry. Mr. City Manager, anything else this evening?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. We are adjourned.